They entered the forest laughing, 6 friends armed with backpacks, flashlights, and stories, unaware the trees had already swallowed them. The moment their boots crossed the mossy threshold, the air grew heavier, silence pressing into their skulls like invisible hands, and it wasn't long before they noticed the sun never shifted. The same cloud hung above them like a watcher, and no matter how far they walked, they returned to the same dead oak with a rotting red ribbon tied to its limb. Then the whispers began, soft at first, crawling into their ears with promises of escape, but only if one stayed behind, only if one fed the forest what it hungered for. Panic spiraled, and they ran, but every direction led back to the clearing, back to the loop, their clocks frozen at 3:17 p.m., time unwinding like a bleeding wound. Food rotted in their packs overnight, even though no night ever came, and soon, one friend disappeared, then another, leaving behind only shoes or a smear of blood. Or nothing at all, until only Mia remained, trembling and hungry, her eyes sunken, her voice lost from screaming into a sky that never changed, drawing symbols in dirt with cracked fingers, hoping the forest might understand mercy. But it didn't, it never did, because it had always been alive, always watching, and now it wore her friends' faces on the trunks of trees, grinning wide as she screamed again, realizing she'd looped back to the beginning, to the moment they first stepped in, the laughter echoing eerily through the leaves like a broken record on repeat. And as she saw herself walk in once more, unaware, she turned to the camera she didn't remember holding, hit record, and whispered, "Don't follow me," before vanishing into the trees, just like the others. The plan was simple, a weekend in nature, no phones, no distractions, just 6 friends and a break from the world. Mia, Jules, Sasha, Corey, Tom, and Ian had known each other since high school. They'd gone their separate ways over the years, but this trip was meant to be a reunion. The forest they'd chosen was remote, one Ian found through an obscure online hiking blog that described it as hauntingly serene. They joked about it on the drive-in, how something so poetic probably meant boring. From the moment they parked and began hiking, the woods felt strange. Not ominous, not at first, but dense. The trees towered too close together. The forest floor, carpeted in thick moss, muffled every step. There was an absence of sound, no birds, no insects, just the rustle of their own clothes and the crunch of twigs. The first loop went unnoticed. They set up camp in a clearing next to an old oak tree with a red ribbon tied to its gnarled limb. Mia swore she hadn't seen the ribbon before. Jules laughed it off, saying Ian must have marked it while they weren't looking. Ian denied it, but they shrugged and moved on. By the second loop, unease settled in. Sasha pointed out they had walked for over an hour, yet were back at the same clearing. The same ribbon. The same dead oak. They checked their phones, no signal. Their watches still worked, or so they thought, until they noticed all showed the same time, 3:17 p.m. Corey made light of it, claiming they were in a Scooby-Doo episode. But when they attempted to leave again, taking a completely different direction, they returned to the oak in 15 minutes. That night, they lit a fire and tried to laugh. The forest didn't laugh back. Instead, it grew colder, though no stars appeared in the sky. The trees pressed in tighter, and the clearing felt smaller. The ribbon fluttered without wind. The second day, they tried to split into pairs and find an exit. Mia and Jules went north. Sasha and Corey east. Ian and Tom west. They were to meet back in 2 hours. All 3 pairs returned to the clearing in less than 30 minutes, from opposite directions. Then the whispers began. At first, it was just Mia. She heard them while sitting alone near the fire pit. A voice, soft and broken, calling her name. She stood up, turned, but no one was there. The others thought she was joking until Corey heard it next. A voice he claimed sounded like his mother. By nightfall, everyone had heard something. The whispers promised safety. Escape. But only if they listened. Only if they trusted the forest. That night, Sasha vanished. She had gone to gather water from the creek just beyond the clearing. When they noticed she was gone, they searched. Her water bottle lay upright on the bank, full. Her footprints stopped mid-step. The water didn't ripple. There was no sign of struggle. No sound. Panic set in. They argued. Blamed each other. Accusations flew. Ian tried to keep the peace, but tension simmered. Then Corey disappeared. He'd been sitting near the fire, muttering to himself, rocking. He said he saw the edge of the forest, said he could walk out. Mia turned away for a second, and when she looked back, he was gone. Not a sound. Not a footprint. Jules, now shaking, confessed he'd heard the forest make him an offer. Let one go, and the rest could leave. It wants sacrifice, he said. Ian punched him, accusing him of taking Sasha and Corey. They fought until Mia screamed at them to stop. Then they heard laughter. Not theirs. From the trees came laughter, low, broken, like children imitating adults. Faces began appearing in the bark, twisted and stretched. Some smiling. Some crying. All watching. Tom ran. They heard him screaming deep into the woods. Then silence. Now only Ian, Jules, and Mia remained. Their food began to rot, mold blooming in sealed packets. Water grew stagnant overnight. Their firewood snapped like wet bones. The trees moved. Not dramatically, but when no one was watching, they seemed closer. Ian vanished next. They woke to find only his boots by the fire. His backpack untouched. Jules accused the forest. Mia accused Jules. Then Jules disappeared. She didn't see it happen. One moment he was next to her, the next, gone. Mia was alone. Time fractured. Her watch ticked backward. The sun froze in the sky, casting a pale light that never shifted. She tried to sleep, but dreams bled into waking. The forest showed her visions, her friends screaming, drowning in the moss, becoming one with the trees. She scratched symbols in the dirt, sigils from a notebook she found in Ian's pack. A journal he never showed them, filled with entries about the forest, about the loop, about feeding it. Mia stopped eating. Her ribs showed. Her voice cracked. She screamed until her throat bled, but the trees didn't answer. Then she saw herself. At the edge of the clearing, walking and laughing, carefree, 5 friends behind her. She stood frozen, watching herself begin the loop again. In her hands, she found a camera. She didn't remember picking it up. She hit record. "Don't follow me," she whispered. Then she walked into the trees and disappeared. The trees were whispering again. Mia couldn't tell if it was her mind playing tricks or if the forest itself was trying to speak to her, trying to tempt her into another deal. She wasn't sure what would happen if she listened this time, but she was determined to hold her ground. She had already fallen victim to its madness once. She wouldn't let the forest consume her again. But the trees were relentless. They began to shift and sway, not with the breeze, but with their own will, as if they were alive, aware, and watching her every move. The bark of the nearest oak stretched unnaturally, forming into a grotesque face, one she recognized. Corey's eyes stared back at her, hollow and unblinking. The twisted smile on his face only made the air feel colder. Mia stumbled backward, eyes wide, heart pounding in her chest. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, filling her head with 1,000 different voices, all speaking at once. They called her name. They offered her freedom, but only at a price. She didn't know what to do. She couldn't fight the forest forever. But if she surrendered, what would become of her? What would become of the others? The forest wanted her, but would it ever be satisfied? Would it ever stop taking? Her thoughts spiraled into chaos, and she dropped to her knees, her body trembling. The sky above remained as cold and gray as ever. No stars. No moon. Just an eternal twilight. Suddenly, she heard a voice, a soft, familiar voice. It wasn't the whispering trees this time. It wasn't a twisted reflection of herself. Mia. She looked up. There, standing in the clearing, was Jules. Her breath caught in her throat. Jules? Her voice cracked. "How are you?" He smiled softly, but it wasn't the smile she remembered. It was something darker, something more knowing. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I didn't want you to go through this. But now it's too late." The tears welled up in her eyes as she stood slowly. "What do you mean? Where are we? Where is everyone?" Jules stepped forward, his eyes hollow. "We're stuck here, Mia. All of us. This place doesn't let you leave. It never lets you leave. And now you've joined us." The words sank into Mia's chest like stones. She could feel the weight of the reality crashing down on her. She had tried to escape, tried to run, but all she had done was return to the beginning, to the same loop. And now, it seemed, the forest had claimed her as well. You're a part of it now," Jules said, his voice filled with sadness. "Just like the rest of us. We're part of the forest." Mia shook her head in disbelief. "No, this isn't real. It can't be." But as the words left her mouth, she felt something shift in the air. The wind picked up, swirling around her, tugging at her clothes, pulling her toward the trees. She heard them, her friends, whispering from the trunks, their voices low and indistinct. They were calling her, pleading with her. "Mia, please." Mia turned to run, but the trees closed in on her. The branches twisted and stretched, their gnarled limbs reaching out like hands, grabbing her, pulling her into the shadows. She screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the forest, consumed by the same silence that had held her captive for so long. She tried to fight. She fought with every ounce of strength she had, but the forest was too strong. The trees were too old, too powerful. It was like trying to escape from a dream, one that refused to let her go. The world blurred around her, her vision spinning. She felt herself being pulled deeper, further into the darkness. The whispers grew louder, their voices rising until they were deafening. They were everywhere, surrounding her, suffocating her. And then, just as suddenly as it had all begun, everything went quiet. Mia opened her eyes. She was back in the clearing. The dead oak stood in front of her, its red ribbon fluttering in the wind. She had returned. Again. Her heart sank into her stomach as the realization hit her. She had been here before. She had walked this path before. She had seen this tree. This moment. She had never left. The loop had claimed her. Mia fell to her knees, her hands pressed against the cold earth, her mind spinning in circles. The weight of her isolation, the never-ending cycle, crushed her spirit. And then, she heard it. Her own voice, soft and distant, calling from the trees. She didn't know if it was real, or if it was just another trick of the forest. But one thing was certain, she was trapped. Trapped in a never-ending nightmare, where the forest was both her prison and her captor. The trees were always watching. They always knew. And they would never let her go.